Hello, it's Brad Laurie or BlockchainBrad, and today I'm speaking with none other than Max Rai. He is the CEO of DeepCloud AI, and I've spoken to him many times before. Today, it's all about providing you with a concise update on all the things that have been happening lately, especially with regard to recent events. Max, thank you very much for being here to let us know all about what DeepCloud AI have been doing.
Hey, thanks, Brad. I really appreciate it, and I always love talking to you and updating the community whenever I can.
Really appreciate it. Now, for those who are wondering why we're doing this, it's to provide you with an insight into recent events. It's entirely free, and I also need to disclose, as a very important aspect of this interview, that I have invested in this project. You do need to know that, and I have put my own money into this project for transparency reasons. You need to know. Now, Max, let's start with understanding specifics of this. Obviously, we want to go in to really explore what recent events have transpired and try and reason them. But for those who literally don't know anything, we need to really move back and just do a quick recap of what DeepCloud AI is trying to do.
Sure, absolutely. We had a great IEO which sold very quickly, or a public sale actually on BitMax on the 18th of this last month. Since that point, we had a great initial first few weeks. We dealt with the market correcting pretty hard around that time with a perfect storm. There was quite a bit of sell pressure, and we did take a hit during that time. We're working very hard right now to put out some really great news for the community. We're recovering slowly. We're coming back, but it's going to take a little time. And in the meantime, we have a lot of other great stuff going on. Like we just recently submitted our proposal for the Binance DEX.
Right, yes, and I saw that, and that's something that a lot of projects are doing to really try and capture the attention of the crypto sphere and also of Binance themselves. But I want to move back a bit before we talk about the success or the movement of the business side of DeepCloud AI and even the token movement itself into the fundamentals of what you are. So let's assume for a moment, once again, that I don't know anything about DeepCloud AI. How would you explain to people about why you need to even exist in this ecosystem? Why do you need, what game changer narrative do you provide?
Sure, absolutely. So what we did about a year ago is we released our Decentralized Cloud Fabric. And what that allows the community to do is they're able to put out cloud computing power from their own computers, right? Mm-hmm. So this gives us a decentralized fabric. Once we had our fabric, we decided the best way to get adoption is to build out very usable, very valuable products on top of our cloud. So recently, we put our updated roadmap, and that roadmap includes several products that are in the Deep Suite. Mm-hmm. Deep Suite is the name of our suite of products. What's really great is all of those products are actually free as long as users hold a certain percentage of tokens or certain value of tokens, say $20 worth of Deep tokens. As long as they hold those tokens in their wallets, mm-hmm. they have the opportunity to utilize all of these apps.
Right, now just to interrupt really there for a second, just want to ask you about that. Now obviously mm-hmm. the token itself acts as a key. It's that utility mm-hmm. key to essentially access all of this Deep Suite. Now, what I did want to ask though is, are you confident that, given that you've already have built out some of this tech already and you have now moved on to the wider open market, are you confident that you have a real product or that this suite of products and tools are actually going to be beneficial for the wider space, for the mainstream, for real applications, for enterprise? Is this the real deal? Is this something that we can actually use and see flourish in years to come?
Absolutely. A great example of that was Deep Transfer. When we released that last year, it's one of the most utilized file transfer programs in Mexico. Mm-hmm. It's very popular, and that was our free version of it. We believe that having that out there, along with these other products that are coming online, is going to be an important part of the ecosystem. And the more users we have on board, the more valuable these products become, and obviously the value of the utility increases. And that's really important. And the entire economic model is very different from the traditional one that's out there. It's almost like a staking to use products, and this shows quite a bit of adoption. That's what we see.
Right, now you're starting to see evidence of that uptake now, given that you're implementing that system, and obviously you're starting to really reach out to different regions of the globe as well. You mentioned Mexico as one. So are you finding that different regions have different needs and thus are responding in accordance with a variation of percentages of uptake?
Yeah, so right now we have the Deep Wallet that's going to be released coming up. Following the Deep Wallet, we have another product called Deep VPN. Deep VPN is, I've gotten so many messages since we released the updated roadmap. People are very excited about that. A lot of people want to start utilizing the Deep VPN because almost all of us use a VPN software one place or the other, especially in Asia. It's very popular.
Right.
So these are the type of products, if we can build, put them out there, have them decentralized, have great technology behind them, and make them free, that's the type of adoption we're looking for.
Right, okay. So obviously you're very much about trying to now spread the value of what you've been building and then continue to build that. Are you doing this effectively, do you think, given that it's a big challenge now to couple networks and narratives with technology, and no question that those former points of narrative and network are extremely valuable in this ecosystem? Are you doing the right things to really bring the technology to life?
It's going to take a little bit of time, and it's going to take a lot of hard work, and that's what we're committed to. One thing that the crypto world expects is fast results. They want everything done pretty quickly. We are working as fast as we can, but there is a process, there is a roadmap, and there's a really great business plan that we put out. So I believe with what we have and the team that we have, we can get the job done, and we can get our products out there.
Right. Well, Max, in the context of Web 3.0, we hear that thrown around a lot, or the new internet, especially when it comes to cloud computing. Do you think that we are moving in that direction, and are you actually part of the leadership of this new and emergent technology?
Absolutely. My personal belief, and the team's belief as well, is we have to build products that consumers are already familiar with, that they already use on a daily basis. Integrate blockchain within those products. Find ways to build something that customers can, that's tangible, that they can use. Sometimes building some of these protocols that are they're amazing, however, may never be used by a consumer, is disheartening for a lot of us engineers. We want to build stuff that people utilize on a daily basis that make a difference in people's lives.
Right.
So one of the reasons why with our products, all of our products is something that people use on a daily basis or very often. And if they can do that and utilize these tokens, they become a real utility.
Got it. Now, obviously, as you mentioned, the utility is bound by the token, or it's the token itself. The utility token is the center. It's the fuel. Are you seeing evidence of this in correlation with the token in terms of the plan for this to develop into a very robust business model? As something where the token represents the true value of the entire ecosystem that you're building. Are you seeing evidence of that correlation now?
Once we start releasing these other products, the Deep Wallet, we have our user base increasing. That's where we're going to see a lot more feedback. and we'll get a lot more numbers as far as how big of an impact it is.
Right.
Just like any other business, we will, if we see any need to make some changes, we'll make those tweaks and continue to build a very solid model.
Got it. Okay. Now, I want to talk to you about your team, because obviously that is the most important part, to lead the tech, and then from there, any other plan to develop the what is DeepCloud AI and bring it to the world. What's the status of your team? Have you made any amendments to the team? Is it the same size, or what's essentially happening right now?
Sure. We've actually added several other engineers on board recently. We've downsized in some areas. Some of the more how do I say it? We've had to make some changes with engineers based off of funding, based off of our roadmap and how long our roadmap takes. The specialty areas, because obviously some of our products are a little different than what we were planning initially. Based off of that, we have to have the right expertise. So we've had to shuffle some things around, but our engineering team is pretty strong now.
Right. So are you still confident, though, in your team that they can lead out the plan and the roadmap and all the products in this deep suite? Are you confident you've got the right formula now, even with the shuffling, to continue forward?
Yes, okay. Everyone is handpicked by myself, and I'm an engineer myself, so I was able to work with these, and I still do. I work with these guys very closely. I have meetings with my engineers on a regular basis.
Okay. All right. Now, with regard to use case, I do want to talk to you about more evidence of that, and with regard to specifics. What kind of verticals, Max, are we talking about for the real world that you can tell us specifically that this code, this protocol, and this technology will apply to?
Sure. One of the areas that we're working on, like, as many people know, we do a lot of custom projects as well. One thing that we're working on right now in Mexico is Mexicar. Which is a vehicle registration and driver registration program that we're doing with a few states. We have a few government level proposals in for other projects. One of them for a petroleum company. Another one for another identification system that uses AI. That's really an area of our focus because of our strong AI team. So all those projects are built on top of DeepCloud's fabric, and as that fabric is being used, the utility of the tokens will also be implemented as well.
Right.
Right. So it's very similar to how AWS does with their instances, where people pay on a per usage basis, and we will be doing the same thing but with our tokens.
Right. Now, you alluded to AWS. Obviously, those giants have. Those tech giants have significant market share. They have significant funding behind them and a lot of resources. Are you at all concerned in any way that when they start to, if they indeed start to really enter into this blockchain domain, into this crypto space, that they could essentially challenge all the things that you've built with regard to having a significant market position?
Yes, very concerned. Everyone should be.
Right.
This is why we need to work harder and get ahead of this, and always keep in mind that they do have a significant market share, but at the same time, there's always still room if you're good at what you do and you have a solid company. You still have once a slice of the pie is still fairly significant. So if we can get in there, do our job, and show our value, that's great in itself.
Right.
But however, everyone should be concerned about the big boys at some point, though.
Well, it is good to know that you have entered into this market quite quickly and had one of those first mover advantages by being so early. But there's also that double-edged sword of being early and still trying to work through this very nascent space, this nascent technology. Have you found that difficult, just entering into what is a very arguably convoluted environment, just to start to find your feet as a business, find your feet, and trying to create some sort of business effect and market effect?
Brad, there's definitely been many challenges in this in the blockchain crypto space when it comes to doing business. However, I've learned a lot over the last year and a half, 2 years, significant amount, and as a result of I've made the changes that are necessary to go with it, to move with this, and try to make the right decisions. There's a lot less regulations, as you know.
And that makes it tough, I would imagine, too, because with not having that clear top-down direction, not having a guidebook or guidelines to follow, have you found that challenging just to try and work through the muddy conditions and waters?
Yes, it's a very different landscape. Dealing with exchanges, dealing with having a community that we have to address on a 24-hour, 7 days a week basis. It can be challenging at times. We're very excited and proud to have our community, but the question was how different it is. It's very different. It's very challenging at times.
And as you mentioned before, it's very much expectation driven, and it's also comes with a lot of expectations for the short term. Now, in that sense, let's get real with the post IEO scenario that you're now in. You had an IEO on BitMax. I want to talk about that from your perspective, and most importantly, to ask the question, what happened? Obviously, the numbers speak for themselves. The exchange performance speaks for themselves in terms of the token. So give us a rundown from your perspective, as no one else can, Max, as the CEO. What transpired and what really happened?
The exchange, first of all, BitMax exchange itself has a very good reputation for performing well. The public sale that we did with them went as expected initially, and I think that was fine. The price was very healthy. We had a very huge issue around it a few weeks ago when the market corrected pretty heavily. That sell pressure we never really recovered from. There was speculation on whether or not the team was selling tokens or dumping tokens.
That's certainly what we need to address now, to find out all of the ins and outs. And I just want to jump in and say that, yes, it's fair to argue that there has been some significant downward pressure overall in the market, but your particular movement was outstanding in perhaps a negative way. There was a significant change in the movement of that token. So we really need to assess this and really explore the reasons, what really happened behind the scenes, so we can understand and really come to trust, them moving forward with DeepCloud AI.
Right. We really, let me see, how do I address this? There was immense amount of sell pressure. But when it comes to team tokens, everything that we have is very transparent. Everything is locked up. All of our wallets are public. People were able to see this, and as a matter of fact, with some folks that messaged me with these types of questions, it was very easy to point them in the direction, say, look at these wallets. They're very easy to see. And BitMax is very strict about this as well, about transparency. And they also put this out for display that this is how many tokens are available. This is what's going on in the space.
Right.
So
sorry
to be honest with you,
but given that sorry, go ahead.
Our position in this exchange and the way we did this public sale was not to artificially pump and dump. It was really to provide the liquidity service. And that was the most responsible thing that BitMax pushed. There's a big difference between our public sale and a lot of the other ones that are out there, and this is one of the big reasons why. You'll see that this is very different very different graph compared to
Well,
what's happening on.
Well, I want to go into more detail with this because having looked through your Telegram and looking at some of the responses from people, one of the big questions that was raised was a change in the essentially that the token supply. You know, the circulating supply more specifically. There were questions raised about whether that was altered in any way, and if indeed, if it was, why. So, can you talk us through those suggestions of changes that emerged?
Oh, sure. This is something that was an issue right at the beginning. The token supply that we had, the vesting schedule that was posted pre-IEO changed as that week we had a lot of strategic investors come on board. And those strategic investors were important because we need to be able to provide liquidity service and have a very healthy supply of that. We also needed to make sure that moving forward, as we work with other exchanges, we work with other folks in this industry, we have the right VCs, and all these VCs are pretty big. They're very well known and very reputable. So we wanted to have this backing as well. Definitely wasn't a money play for us. This was more of making sure that we have enough liquidity for our exchanges and making sure that we had the right partners on board.
Right,
as a result,
some were concerned about whether or not that was a last-minute move, to try and increase, the overall support for your ecosystem with more VCs sort of connected to, your model. But in doing so, from what I'd read when the CEO of BitMax, George Chow, one of the co-founders rather, he tweeted out that, he insinuated that there was a communication lapse perhaps as you'd done this. So do you want to talk us through that as well, whether or not, this was something that you guys did to bolster the support for BitMax from the outset, and whether or not there was indeed, some sort of communication issue between the parties of BitMax and DeepCloud AI?
Yes. Based off of BitMax's models and their expectations about what the right numbers should be for the circulating supply, different from what we had. So there was a communication problem. Any of these VCs that came on board, or this strategy that we took, it's still spread out. It's still invested over multiple months. So no VC got any special prices or discounts and or even investing period advantages. So in that way, it was still a pretty healthy. To me, it was still a pretty healthy environment. What we could have done better is better communication with the BitMax community and BitMax itself.
Right.
Because what happening was really the token circulation supply was different. However, any funds raised or so forth also went back to supporting the exchange and the project. And so
I see.
As well.
So once that tweet was put out, or that statement that Georgia put out from BitMax, has there been communication? Has there been communication since between yourself and the BitMax team to ensure that there's clarity, to ensure that there's reciprocal understanding from both parties about what the plan is for the future?
Yes, we as partners, that we're still working very closely together strategically on our future plans, what steps to take, and how to move forward. So BitMax is definitely doing what they can with their limited bandwidth, as they are fairly busy with a number of other projects, and we're working hard ourselves.
Right. Now, with regard to lockups, Max, I really want to talk about that because you touched on that before, saying that the parties that came on board later, those VCs, are certainly locked up for longer periods. But in the context of what we tend to see with lockups is, periods of time when tokens are released and thus many of them sold for capital reasons or for profit. Now, in your instance, have you made sure that you're protecting the interests of investors overall by not having dumping scenarios, by not having scenarios where people really continue to suffer because of all these points of access and these dumping grounds that tend to happen?
As much as we can do.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, because they have their vesting periods. They only get their tokens at the times that are promised.
Mm-hmm.
So they don't necessarily have the opportunity to dump those earlier on other folks or so forth.
Mm-hmm.
And they're not discounted as well. But with all the strategic VCs, everyone is sacrificing together at this moment. At this point, as the price is below IEO, everyone is affected equally. So many of them this is a time for them to work together with us because they're invested into us, right? So these strategic investors are working very closely with us, and we're looking for ways to make this project better, have better branding, growth. There's a number of different verticals that we're looking at that can help the project. And this is exactly why this is really valuable to have these people on board. Having BitMax has been immensely great. However, as I mentioned, they are very busy with many projects that they're doing. And during these times, we have to tap on the expertise and the networks of the people that came on board.
I see. So essentially, the bleeding that's happening now, not just for yourselves, but for all the parties involved in terms of supporting you with their own skin in the game, you're suggesting that they are really now incentivized to step up and do everything they can to support you. Can you give us some examples of what is actually happening from those parties, from those VCs, so that we can really see that there is this collaboration that is beyond just their investment?
Sure. Many of these VCs have their own communities of investors and communities of within Asia and globally. They're helping to put out content, marketing material. Some of them are helping us with our product roadmaps. A few of them are helping us with that. One of our VCs is actually a traditional VC. They're not necessarily crypto VC. So they're also looking at our existing lineup and looking at how we can try to build revenue generating products into the marketplace. So these type of things they're looking at, and if these guys were only in it for the money, this is not a good scenario for them.
Right, I see. So there can be a boon to this kind of below ICO scenario if you have a good support system at that level, with true and authentic and well-resourced VCs, as well as those in the traditional sector. Are you confident you got the mix right? Are you confident that you indeed have people who can help uplift you out of this crypto chasm that you're in?
Yes, we have really good communication, a really good relationship, and I believe that these guys they're in it for the long run, because at the end of the day, their skin is in the game, and they don't have massive or any discounts. They're in at the same price as all the rest of the people that are in it. So
right. Okay. Now, what about the scenario we see play out now with the polarization of BTC versus other startups? I won't say the term used there because I think that's conditioned by the scenario. But we see now a percentage approximately just under 70% dominance for Bitcoin. Is that a challenge in itself, just seeing this polarized narrative emerge, this constant battle between the emerging startups and the first iteration of the technology?
I believe so. There is a huge issue across the board for the entire market for all projects right now. There's very few that are doing well. Everyone's struggling because the market isn't where we want it to be.
Right.
So we have to continue working hard. We have to continue doing whatever it takes to succeed. And in the meantime, we have to try to do what we can with the market conditions.
Sure. Now, to do that well. Sorry, go ahead, Max.
I mean, at the end of the day, it's very difficult to control the entire market ourselves and don't try to pump it up, affect it ourselves alone.
Sure.
So, I wish we could get the prices of everything up just with progress alone.
Got it. Now, I wanted to ask you, to do this well, you still need the support of the exchanges for a multitude of different reasons. From my understanding, exchanges always offer resources as part of the package. Now, how long is the support work for BitMax in terms of, their offering? And then what is the plan beyond that? You alluded to other exchanges, you alluded to, other support coming, you mentioned the Binance DEX. Is there still a longitudinal plan of support beyond what BitMax are doing?
Yes, and as I mentioned, we just submitted a proposal on Binance DEX. That's a path that our team is working hard towards, as well as there's other exchanges that we're in talks with. As you know, I can't divulge many of these things, but we have a lot of great exchanges and great folks that we're talking to, and we're going to continue building on the communication that we have with them, and try to do some things in that area. But once again, it's a work in progress.
Okay. Now, Max, to do all of this, you need money. We know that the process is not cheap. What's your runway like, mate? Obviously, you were pretty frugal from the outset. You were always very proud, to say that you weren't trying to push for big bucks when it comes to your raise and the process from the beginning in terms of your tiered sale, or your pre-sale and private sale. Now, where are you situated now? How much money do you have for the future, and do you have enough?
We do have enough to execute on our roadmap and take our products to the market. We believe that we can continue all the way through our roadmap. We can do that. We've been able to allocate and restructure accordingly to make that happen. So,
right. So how long is that, Max? How long is your roadmap run through?
We believe that by the end of next year, we should have the majority of all of our products out in the market, and in that period of time, also have a revenue generating coming in that can continue to move us forward.
I see, and it's interesting because, as you'd be aware, I've worked with other companies before, just supporting them freely. And I've seen scenarios where they've declined in terms of VC support, they've declined in terms of network effects, and what it did was it really incentivized that team to excel if they had that, that gumption. And in that instance, they really did push forward and they were able to dig themselves out of that hole. Do you feel like you have that ability, given you have enough runway to the end of your roadmap? Do you feel like this is still possible, that you can get through to that revenue position and then get out into the clear?
Yes, it's upon us to do that, and it's a commitment that we have to uphold. And we're all working very hard to make this happen. I do this pretty much 7 days a week, and I'm excited to do this every day. So I love our community. I love the support that we get, and so far so good. Once we get the momentum with the products themselves, I believe that it'll be a very strong build up from there.
Right. Well, right now, some of the members of the community certainly do have their pitchforks out, though. You can see that in Telegram. One example from Sam Bandani from Telegram wrote, 10 to 20% dump is okay, but 90% in 2 weeks. Investors need to know what's going wrong. So I really want to talk about that, though, a little bit more, Max, because yes, it's one thing to have, a market move downward, but do you have anything to say to those people who genuinely are this concerned? I think this is a good encapsulate of such a significant downward pressure to address their very genuine stress.
We have very little to do with how much we can affect the price. It's unfortunate that we had that type of sell pressure. I believe that maybe we could have done more when it comes to the announcements
Mm-hmm.
earlier. We could have pushed for the Binance DEX earlier. We need to do a better job with communicating that, and with some of the things we want to do.
Okay.
However, the market cap itself is very reasonable, and the team itself has been very frugal, as you mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
We're working on a real product, and we hope that this will turn things around, and people believe in the team and in what we're doing.
Right.
Right. So, it affects all of us. I mentioned this on Telegram as well, where we all have a stake in this. This affects us too. We do not want to see that type of stuff pressure, and we don't want to see those prices.
Got it. Now, for the team itself, how long are you locked up for to ensure that you are literally there for the long term? So there's no, there's no opacity with regard to, your plan.
We have a 2-year lockup, and it's vested following that. So even after 2 years, we don't get all of our tokens. Even after that, then they're vested over a 12-month period.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Now, with regard to the positive approach to the community building, which is another major component of success of your venture, what are you doing to invest in and consolidate a very strong community to build this out with you?
So we are launching a program called DC Heroes, DeepCloud Heroes. We are doing some giveaways and trying to get the community excited over some of these things that we're doing. And a lot of it is communicating our roadmap, the features of our products, what these real products look like, and how they affect all of us. So these are some of the things that we're doing to get the community going. The old method of just doing airdrops or bounties, I think, is not as valuable anymore. We have to do real things and reach out to some of these folks. And we're also doing things with universities where they're computer science departments, and reaching out and inviting people to come and build with us.
Right. Max, in that context though, does it get frustrating when you see very nebulous or even vacuous shell systems and companies or startups come forward with all these narratives, with all these superficial points of value, knowing that perhaps they are questionable from the outset and getting a lot of attention and thus being valuable for the attention that they garner? Does it get frustrating when your premise is all about trying to prove value through empirical proof, through empirical evidence that there's something of sustained value?
That's a very difficult question that you're asking. Actually, believe it or not, it's a very difficult question because when it comes to investors, their main concern is just price. And for teams, we care very heavily about the project. So it's frustrating at times, but we understand where the investors are coming from. Their interest is in the value of the tokens, and we get that. For us, we believe that if we're a tech company that's building great products, we need the time and the support until we get to that point. So, So it's
so in that sense, though, given that you can't really compare oranges and apples in this scenario like you're alluding to, is it regulation and compliance that's going to solve this issue? And are you confident that you're on the side of that in a positive light, that you're going to be deemed entirely with support from the top down when it comes to the axe falling, or the hammer being coming down upon those that don't actually have any substance beyond the narrative?
It's going to be up to us to prove many of these things. We have to showcase the utility of what we're doing, of our product. We have to have progress, follow our roadmap, and make some of these things happen. Otherwise, we will be bunched up with a lot of these other companies.
Got it. Well, you talked about roadmap. You talked about runway. Talked about revenue, or alluded to the plan that will come forth. What about partnerships to make all this happen? What kind of names can you let us know? Not to FOMO, but to give us direction in that you are forging real partnerships outside of the space.
Yeah, so I can't release those names yet, but we'll be releasing some in the next few days.
Mm-hmm.
We'll definitely have some news coming out, and those partnerships are real partnerships where we're building together some of our products and their products.
Okay. Now, in terms of tech development, the Deep Node system, I want to find out more of that because that's significant. You've mentioned the wallet and the Deep Suite. So how does the Deep Nodes also add in to more of the technological value of your system?
Sure. The deep nodes, these master nodes, once if you're staking 50,000 tokens or more, you're able to do that. You're able to earn as a result. But for us, that also means that these nodes that are distributed globally assist us on our VPN service, for example, deep transfer service. Many of the services that we are building out will be utilizing these decentralized master nodes that are global. So everything is working together, and of course, Deep Suite is the name of all of those products.
Right. Okay. Now, just on a final point with regard to the roadmap, things like Yellowstone, if I've said it correctly, or Falcon, with regard to the graduation towards mainnet, can you give us a bit of an overview on the movement towards proof of mainnet?
Mm-hmm. So, just let you know, our updated roadmap pushed our own chain further back and put real products more up in the front.
Okay.
So since our MVP was our cloud fabric, right, our decentralized cloud fabric, that was our main product. And the chain is something that we wanted to bring on board at some point, and that's what some of the stuff that you're discussing now.
Right.
And the much shorter term, it's going to be the deep VPN, the deep storage, many of these different products that we're looking at to roll out fairly quickly that users and even our community can start using right away and being able to have a utility around their tokens.
I see. So you're really focusing on that short-term proof of utility as quickly as possible to roll out the tools and through the Deep Suite, which I would imagine makes a lot more sense because that would be easier than some of the other more ambitious aspects of your roadmap, and certainly a necessity given your context right now with the fragility of the whole ecosystem of crypto. Long term, let's talk about that. We don't see enough proof of longitudinal value, longitudinal proof. We see a lot of the opposite. How can we trust that this is the real deal and you really are building this out for decades?
To be honest with you, to be really honest with you, it's the proof is in the pudding. We have to prove the short-term goals to be able to follow through and get people to buy into the long-term goals.
Right.
Our long-term goal is obviously to have a lot more enterprise scale applications and have our own chain use cases, a much more expanded product lineup. But those are something that we can look at 2020 and beyond. But in the real world, you have to prove short-term success as well.
Well, given the complexities, given the fact that a lot of people are very concerned right now for the overall space, what would you like to say as a closing statement, Max, for this update? I would like to thank you before you do that for your transparency. You've been very open with all of these tough questions. I certainly didn't give you those questions before this interview, and it was entirely free, as you know. But what would you like to say now to all of those people who are literally part of DeepCloud AI?
Yes, they are very part of they're very part of DeepCloud AI. They're invested in us and together with us. We appreciate your support, and we're going to do everything that it takes to work hard and show you guys that we're a valuable company, that we're doing some amazing things. And the long term that we're going to work with you guys working together shows success.
Right. Well, Max Rye, you are the CEO of DeepCloud AI. Thank you very much for your time today. I know you've been very busy all day and you've made time for this interview. It is important that you do inform the community, especially those who are those key participants in your ecosystem, those that have invested in supporting the utility token. This is how you build for the future. You're letting them know. We respect that. We appreciate that. As an investor myself in your ecosystem, I appreciate that. Once again, thank you for your time, and hopefully we can catch up with consistent updates as you continue to build this ecosystem for something real, for something tangible, and something that is evidenced through proof of something beyond the narratives we're currently seeing in crypto.
Great. Thank you, Brad.
You're welcome, mate. Take care. All the best, and talk to you soon.